We are having a conversation around narcissism.
Okay. Posting too many selfies or talking too much about yourself is equals to narcissistic traits.
Amit.
The sense of self is something which is affected a lot in the person.
You never call out a narcissist. The moment you do that, hey, I see narcissistic traits in you, and you're going to be taken for a ride. It's like if seeing oneself as the best, having the inability to feel others' emotions,
Brought up
and
Hello everyone. Thank you so much for watching Sound Mind. I am Shivani, and today we are having a conversation around narcissism, which is a very sensitive topic in itself. So, what narcissism actually means, and how we should not use this term loosely, and what are the reasons of developing this narcissistic traits, is all these which we have discussed in this conversation today with our guest who has helped us understand in a very simplistic manner about this topic, and she has also given a lot of takeaways on how to actually deal and survive in a space where we have to be around a person showing this narcissistic traits. So today's guest is Anaita Veigas. She's a psychologist and mind coach as well. She has 7 years of experience working in mental health space. So let's welcome our guest for today. And today's episode will be co-hosted with me by our member Priyadarshini. So let's welcome our guest Anaita. Hello Anita, welcome to Sound Mind. Thank you so much for joining.
thank you for having me here.
I would also like you to introduce yourself, give a little bit about insights about your work and your experience so far in the mental health field. So, yeah.
Hi, my name is Anaita, and I am a psychologist. I have been in the field for about 7 years or so now, and I am pursuing a PhD in psychology and have done my master's in clinical psychology. All that aside, I think my love for psychology comes from my passion to understand why we think, feel, or act a certain way. And it's really fulfilling to see lives change, to see mindsets change, to see people being able to manage their emotions. So that's why I'm here.
Great. I was just wondering if you can give out in a brief that why we picked up this particular topic of narcissism for today.
There's so much around it. But to begin with, I think it's because I work with people who are at the receiving end of this emotional abuse, and it's really saddening because it's the kind of wound that is not seen on the surface, that penetrates so deep within one's personality when they are at the receiving end of it. Also, speaking from a very personal experience from this and how I navigated through this, you know. So, my mission of being here is to just give parts of what I have back to people so that they take the information and choose what they want to do with it.
I kind of, absolutely love and admire the way you framed everything. You tried your best to, put it forward in a way which is not offensive to the person who is narcissist, and at the same time to acknowledge the pain and suffering that the person on the receiving end is also going through. The way you said, it might be small instances, it might be small things, but it does a very deep damage on
Yeah,
people.
right. So here we have this platform to understand and make it simpler to the audience, which is not from a mental health background, to let them understand the sensitivity about this term, and helping them understand what narcissism actually means, how it is really different. Maybe a person can have narcissistic traits, but it is really different from narcissistic personality disorder.
So, when we talk about narcissistic personality disorder, right, I would again not using a lot of jargons, not wanting to get a lot into the clinical aspect of it, but it revolves around seeing oneself as the best, having the inability to feel others' emotions, and develop close and strong bonds with people, emotional bonds, social bonds with people, um, and the need to be at the receiving end of being admired, being at the receiving end of wanting love, needing everything. When we talk about narcissistic personality disorder, we see these traits very prominently in just their day-to-day lives. And the consequence of that will be more visible than the actions, because the actions is so well crafted that even the one who is at the receiving end of that is so puzzled. Imagine, okay, I'm talking about emotions and I'm talking about psychology, but let's try to see it more in terms of actuality. Let's say I am here and I know that it's daylight, it's evening time. But if you tell me that no, it's nighttime, it's just somebody who's just put out a light and that's why it is like that. So something within me will tell me that no, it's not. I know it's evening. But when you tell me consistently that no, it's not really daytime, it's just somebody who's put out a very bright light, which is why it's like that. And when you keep telling me, I will, irrespective of what is true to me, if I am not standing in my truth, I will have a tendency to believe you, especially if I have bonded with you even more closely, like if you're a parent or a spouse or any other kind of relationship. So that is the kind of damage that happens. I really think that it's a spectrum. Like we all are on a spectrum. Like anxiety is a spectrum, depression is a spectrum, everything is a spectrum. So even when we speak about narcissistic personality disorder, I think, or just narcissism, it's, I think we all have the sense of wanting to be loved, wanting to be wanting to be at the receiving end of being admired and receiving end of having attention to ourselves. But if I am on a higher end of this need for admiration and all these things, I will play around the situation. I will do things so that you fall in love with me, so that you give me what I want.
Needing love. As you said, it of course is on spectrum, so maybe different people will showcase different traits. But maybe which one is prevalent?
Again, there's it's such a when you get into the depths of understanding narcissism, it's not as easy to just say this is it and that is it. We all were children once, innocent children once, right? And we deserved an adult being, as a caretaker, to look after our emotional needs, to look after our physical needs, to look after all our needs. And unfortunately, this does not happen with the person who eventually develops these traits for themselves. So it is a defense mechanism that's working. just like many other things. It's just the defense mechanism that works to help them survive. And deep within, they want to be loved, but they don't think they deserve to be loved. Like if you're at the receiving end of being in a relationship, any kind of relationship with somebody like that, uh, you will have to be consistently pleasing them, admiring them, giving them everything, every bit of you. And as long as that serves them, they're happy. And when that stops, their sense of self gets affected, because then because they have such fragile sense of or they're so defensive, that the little thing that you do, like let's say you're just talking to them and you yawn or you roll your eyes, that itself is enough, because they are, hypersensitive towards being rejected or neglected. Because, again, if you go very deep within that, maybe that takes them back to the uh, childhood where they have been neglected or rejected, or it takes them back to a childhood where probably they were admired so much. Now that somebody is not admiring them, it's not settling well with them.
I couldn't agree more. Like, I really love the way you put as well. And what I can take from what you mentioned was the sense of self is something which is affected a lot in the person who shows this. And one more thing which I just realized is the person with these traits or narcissism crafts things around, crafts so many things in the environment. So that itself sounds so complex and so much of a task for that person as well. Looking at it from the like person having those traits. Okay, so let's roll down to a little bit lighter note. We are having a myth buster round here, a fact and a myth buster round.
So I'll just start with the statements. And so the first statement is narcissism can come from being overpraised or ignored too much.
True.
Okay. Posting too many selfies or talking too much about yourself is equals to narcissistic traits.
Amit.
Okay. You can tell someone is a narcissist just by how they act in public.
False.
Okay. Some narcissists can be shy, quiet, and even insecure.
True.
Okay. Narcissists always know they are being narcissistic.
Myth.
Okay. Not all toxic people are narcissists.
True.
Okay. Narcissists love themselves a lot and feel no pain at all.
False. Myth.
Okay. Calling someone a narcissist doesn't always help. It can shut down the real talk.
True.
Okay. Narcissists can never change.
False.
Coming back to the conversation, so I would love you to break it down for the audience in a simplistic way, that how it develops. Is there a genetics part involved in it, or it only comes with an experience that you were mentioning about in the childhood?
Right. So research does say that genetics also plays a role. And apart from that, the environment also may push one to be more of that. Like, again, if I have to clearly distinguish between, let's say, a child born of a mother who has a lot of narcissistic traits and is not probably living with her, so there are high chance that the other parent would be able to mold them or mold their mindset or teach them how to process their emotion and the kind of care and love that they give. So, genetics alone would not be a huge factor, though it can be something that can help um, increase or decrease the way things show up. What also matters is the kind of environment that the child grows up in. And this is something that I am so deeply moved to spread awareness about because again, me being a mother of a 3-year-old and seeing all of the parents around. So what I see right now is that instead of being balanced in the way that they are parenting the child, they go all the way to the other end. That means they shower them with everything that they need, with praises. Like it's so common again, because I have a child. It's so common to see people praise the child for every tiny thing that the child does. And so, just like how one is supposed to not criticize the person but the behavior, the same works with praise, which is not very well established. That you praise the act more than the one who is performing that act. Because if you think deeply, when you're praising the one who's performing the act, you're feeding them a conditional mindset that this is when I like you more, or this is who you are. And the sense, and when that person is a child, that is that's the bar that they have to keep on meeting, which is not possible for a child. So what happens when they are not that? What are they going to do, right? And that's where, for example, a child who is uh, constantly praised and then one time it ends up doing a mistake, it's so natural for the child to want to blame it on another person or a thing,
Mhm.
because I want the praise and appreciation from you. We're all built in that way. And now you stop giving me, I will, by my innate need to receive that, will find a crazy way of receiving that. And one of the
True.
ways to just shift the blame or just deny that that did not happen. So it's the tiny things that the parents do or don't that leads to the birth or the narcissist being formed. And again, it breaks my heart to see that this is something that people don't have awareness about because of the lack of awareness or psychology behind that, right? So if I have to summarize, I think one spectrum would be being very harsh, critical, constantly nagging, constantly putting them down. The sense of self is, you're worthless, you're this, why did you do this, why are you, all those kind of labels, negative labels. That's one aspect of understanding this, and the other is the opposite end. So the answer lies in between, the balance, and
Mm.
understanding how to navigate through this.
You also mentioned about the difficulties and the um, harshness that a person on receiving end faces or suffers. So, continuing a little bit, diving into that aspect, since you have professional as well as personal experience with this, I would love to have few pointers from you for the people who have to rather deal with person showing this narcissistic traits. Um, because I know that distancing them, cutting them out is one way, of course, if they can do it, but it doesn't happen that way. There are people who we can't break the ties with, maybe families, relatives, or at workplace as well, because that's how the dynamics works. Yes.
It's so important that in an Indian setup, in an Indian cultural setting, it's not possible to just, break relationships, especially if that's an authoritative figure in terms of maybe a family member, or if one is in a marriage and the person at the receiving end does not have the means to just call it quits and get out. So it's important to know कि हम क्या कर सकते हैं if we are forced to survive in such a situation. And I'm consciously using the word survive here. And I'm consciously using the word survive here. If you are at the receiving end of it, your sense of self has to be so strong that nothing moves it. Like I give you the example of the daylight, and the person who is the abuser says it's nighttime, right? Your sense of self has to be so strong that you know that it is daytime. No matter how much they scream, no matter how much what they do to prove it to you. Again, one of the things that is very prominent is memory loss. And that's just one of the way how probably God designed us to cope through trauma. I would suggest you make a strong note of your memories and go to a person, a therapist, a psychologist who is qualified enough to navigate through this process emotionally, cognitively, through the kind of puzzling thoughts that you have, and also behaviorally in terms of the choices that you want to make and the choices that you want to avoid, so that you have an anchor which is outside of you till you are able to be your own anchor. The narcissist, their sense of self is so fragile, you'll become a right opposite of them. And that's how you win the game. The roots go so deep that even if storm comes, it does not move you along. That's the hardcore thing that one needs to work towards. But if we talk about tidbits of how this looks in personal experience, that could mean that if this person is trying to get into an argument about something that you said, but you don't really mean the kind of things that they are, implying, then instead of going on a space of explaining yourself or over explaining yourself, you just say that my reality is different and your reality is different. Maybe you see it like that and I see it like that, and that's okay. But don't dance when they play the music. So choose your battles. And again, that's where my sense of self, my sense of reality has to be so strong that I don't let their voice become my voice, that I don't let their emotions become my emotions and their actions become my actions. In my personal journey, I used a lot of spiritual, religious work that I did that helped me just stay solid when everything was falling apart. So one has to see what what helps them. You have to have a strong, supportive environment to continue living like this. It could be your friends, it could be religion, it could be anything else, but something that really can hold you, that you can fall back on. Everyone's different, finding your own thing. It could just be singing, it could just be dancing, it could be going out for a walk, it could be going out for a run. That's when you can not just survive but thrive, because you will walk in your own truth, in your own light. And
A lot of pointers and a lot of takeaways actually, uh, for the people who are, as you said, surviving through this situation. So, and I'm really happy that you brought up therapy works a lot in this situation for people who are surviving through it. So, because the ult- ultimate motive of this channel is, working towards awareness around mental health, and therapy is such a important aspect of it. So thank you so much for bringing that up as well. Since we are at the concluding end of the conversation, we always like most of our conversation we had mentioned, you also had mentioned that the term is being used very loosely. So I would like you to give a little bit of mindful statements that people can use, or just few things around why is it important to be mindful while using this term.
I think it's very common and an insensitive and a very unconscious way of processing things when we tend to just label things. Because from a spiritual perspective, if I say that something is, that does not mean something is all the time. If I'm happy now, I am not going to be happy all the time. If I'm sad now, I'm not going to be sad all the time. Nothing is constant. So, how can I then label something and expect that to be constant? I mean, who am I to do that? And why am I assuming this role? If somebody has sticked around and been through the entire podcast, they would understand the gravity of the situation more. And also the person who has narcissistic traits, because they are not happy. They may show that they are happy, but they're not happy. They're just assimilating things and doing things around to create a false illusion of happiness. So it's not a joke. It's something that is deeply saddening and very real. Like, again, theoretically speaking, you never call out a narcissist. The moment you do that, hey, I see narcissistic traits in you, and you're you're going to be taken for a ride. It's like, if I knew that I was going to be robbed, don't you think I'm going to do everything in my power to secure my house? So what makes you think that, I'm just going to bring it up and things are going to change, everything is going to be good? No, it won't. It will mostly get worse. I have had so many people come to me who have questioned me if they have narcissistic trait. I do this, I do that, I do this. Do you think I am the narcissist? Why are they even bringing these things up? Versus a person who really has NPD will not even acknowledge that they are, unless they are on a very, different league, like a spectrum. And while it looks like, somebody who loves themselves may have narcissistic traits, but it's much more deeper than that. So it's always wise to just be silent and live and let live. Wise to just be silent and live and let live.
And the easiest way to say it, like live and let live. And yeah, thank you so much for bringing the point that, why not calling out names is important. It's also about protecting ourselves, uh, firstly. So yeah, that was something which was uh, quite helpful and easiest way to do.
While you were talking about the labels, I think this was the first time we talked a lot about what the narcissist person might also go through. Because throughout our conversations, we were kind of more focused on the people on the receiving end. And you talked about how the labels might also affect them because they are going to do everything in their capacity to, just not prove that, okay, I am a narcissist person. So, is it possible that a person with narcissist trait can maybe recognize themselves and their traits, their actions, and can they actually change?
So I think there are many realities that exist together. There are people who are aware, who are fully aware of what they do, and they still do what they do, right? And then there are people who just, because of whatever has happened to them, they have, this is how they cope and this is how they're surviving, and they're so unaware of why it started and what's it doing to them and why their life is falling apart and why they probably tend to lie a lot. They have no idea that they even do these things. They have zero awareness about anything. So these are the two extreme ends again. And then there are people in between. When we talk about NPD at the highest, uh, it depends on how they react or respond to how their actions, their mindset, their everything, their being is affecting others. Like if, let's say, I was somebody who has NPD, and I see that I'm losing everything around me, right? I can't have a job, I can't have a very close relationship, and I can't feel good unless I am dressed up in a certain way, or if I am speaking in a certain way, or if somebody praises me or not, all those things. Uh, it, it becomes difficult to then navigate through life, because then I would know that if I want something, I will have to change myself. I will have to mold my reality. It's almost like being reparented, but not with an actual parent. But life is probably teaching you that, hey, if you just go down this road, this is your future. And if you're okay with this, fair enough. And if you're not, then there's nothing that you can do but leave. So I think it depends on the kind of people that surround them. Now, again, from an Indian perspective, a lot of the older generation, like our mothers, aunts, and grandmothers, and for ancestors before that, they happen to just stick around, irrespective. They happen to tolerate, irrespective. They happen to mold in whatever shape and form the other person wanted them to. So in such situations, it's difficult for the person who is having these traits to change. Because if you're talking about fever, you will have to go to a physician, right? Because they understand that I don't know what's happening in my body, right? But if I go to the physician, they know best. So your situation, bring your situation to somebody who also understands the problem, who also understands you, and who has the capacity to be in between.
I'm still kind of processing and understanding the whole explanation around how to go about it, and from the perspective of the person who believes or feels that they are having the signs of or showing the traits. So thank you so much, Priya, for bringing up that question.
So that brings us to the end of this deeply insightful episode. And honestly, I want to um, express my heartfelt thank you to Anaita, because the topic that we were talking about today was a very complex topic. And narcissism in itself is so complex, but holding space for this type of conversation with so much compassion and honesty is very important. Because I think the people who are on the receiving end might not even know that they are dealing with such situation, whereas the person who is a narcissist, they might not know that they are doing so much harm to the person that they might love a lot, they might care a lot, but then they are not aware about their own actions. And I think today's episode will give a lot of people a lot of things to think about. So I think thank you so much. I am very grateful, and I'm so glad that I got the opportunity to, have this conversation with you. And I'm sure Shivani feels the same way. Um, Now to end the whole thing, to the audience, if you thought that this episode gave you something to think about, a new information to know about, if it gave you a chance to explore a new zone altogether, if you felt like this added something to your knowledge bank, if you want to know more about such topics, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends and family, or anyone who might be interested in knowing more about these things. And subscribe that channel and hit that bell icon so that you get the notification for whenever we post more such videos. And If you would like to collaborate with us or maybe share your own story here with us, feel free to reach out and we would love to hear from you. Thank you. See you in the next video.